What's going on, guys? Khosh here, coming back at you with another video. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about controller settings, and trying to explain everything about controller settings to you guys so you can understand how to choose your sensitivity better and play better. There's a lot of weird intricacies about controller and how the settings affect each other, so you should definitely watch the whole video so you can get everything out of it. I'm also going to be giving a lot of tips and tricks, as well as a couple things that you can practice to improve your crosshair placement. There's so many little things on controller that once you understand will make you a much better player, so I really think this video is going to help you guys out a lot. Make sure you guys like and subscribe and drop a sub with noties on. And without further ado, let's get into it. So before we get into sensitivity or tips and tricks or anything like that, I wanted to talk about this very important setting first, controller platform. A lot of people think that this does nothing and just changes the way your buttons look, or that it gives you less input delay if you switch it to generic, but that's actually not true. I made a video about this before, and for those of you that watched it know that it actually changes the stick curve on your controller, similar to the stick curve setting in Call of Duty. Xbox would be considered standard, PlayStation would be considered dynamic, and generic would be considered linear. It changes the stick curve on your right stick, but also your left stick and the way your character moves as well. You'll notice people on PS4 and generic move a little bit more stiff than people on Xbox. So obviously these settings aren't going to be exactly the same as the ones on Call of Duty. However, I think that it's a good comparison, and I think that PlayStation is very similar to the dynamic stick curve on Call of Duty, where if you move your stick towards the lower middle part of the curve, then it'll move really fast, but towards the end of the curve, when you push your stick outwards on the ring, it'll start to move slower. There really isn't a best one for this setting to use. I think it's a lot of preference, a lot of how your stick is. If you have a stiff stick, obviously you'd want to play on Xbox because it feels a lot looser. If you have a very loose stick, I personally like PS4 more. So it's down to preference. It doesn't really have a end all be all in which one you should pick. However, PlayStation does have a lot stickier aim assist, and I hit a lot more 200 pumps on PlayStation personally. So if you're having a hard time aiming on controller, I'd give that a try. Playing on PS4 layout though is kind of hard. It takes a little bit of finesse and getting used to. However, if you can get really good with it, you can have a very flicky KBM type playstyle, and it looks really good. As for Xbox layout, it'll definitely make your stick feel a lot looser, and it'll make your character movement a lot looser as well. It'll make you strafe a lot wider. I personally don't like it as much, but a lot of people swear by it, and a lot of people use it and say it has the lowest delay. But again, all down to preference. As for generic, I don't really like generic. It makes you look really bad, and it takes away a lot of your aim assist, but it can make your piece really good because of the linear output. And what I mean by that is because you're playing on more of a linear curve and you have less acceleration, it can be easier to hit wall edits because your sensitivity should feel really consistent. The next tip I wanted to give you guys, and this one's a really important one, is your sensitivity depends on what you last had stored after you take your map out. So what I mean by that is when you have your shotgun out and then you switch to your builds, it's going to change your sensitivity compared to when you have your pickaxe out and then you switch to your builds. Shotgun makes your editing and building sense a little bit slower and locks it into a certain kind of input curve, and then having your pickaxe out and switching to your builds does the same thing. Pickaxe is a lot looser and quicker. Shotgun is stiffer and slower. And once you understand this, it becomes a lot easier to be consistent, because then you can consistently practice with either your shotgun or your pickaxe out before you switch to your builds. In my opinion, you should always have your shotgun out, and you should always be practicing piece and even retakes with your shotgun out when you're playing controller, because at the end of the day, that is what matters the most, is having your gun out. And pickaxe edits can be cool, but they're not good for real games, and they're not good for real fights in general at all. I do still think having your pickaxe on and doing builds and edits on controller is good though, because it can make your builds look a lot flashier, and it's really good for creative retakes and doing things in really good momentum. If you do want to do pickaxe editing and building, you just gotta understand that it has a lot of acceleration to it, and you have to learn how to use that, just like how you have to learn how to use all the different sensitivity curves. For getting used to your sensitivity and learning better crosshair placement, I really recommend using this crosshair placement map, as well as doing the crosshair placement piece control drills. They help a lot for getting your crosshair placement better, which makes you a lot better on controller. It's a lot more important to have good crosshair placement on controller than it is on keyboard, because on keyboard you have way more control than you do on controller. I'll be putting the codes for these maps in the description. I definitely think you guys should give these a shot. They're really good for controller. Now finally, moving on to sensitivity and the settings. So sensitivity is really weird in this game. There's a couple weird quirky things about it, and things that you have to understand so you can pick a good sense. The first thing that you got to understand is that your build mode multiplier is affected by your edit mode multiplier. And what I mean by that is that depending on what your edit mode is, it's going to change the way that your build mode feels. It's a really weird thing and it doesn't make sense, but that's just the way it works. If your edit mode is on 2.4, It's going to feel different than if your edit mode was on 2.3 for your builds. Now finally, moving on to X and Y. I don't think you should be playing anything above 55% unless you're doing creative retakes. The reason people play above 55% is because that it makes your shotgun edits feel a lot quicker, and it's easier to do retakes when you have a higher XY. Even then, I still don't think you should be playing 55%. 55% is definitely on the higher end, and this is the maximum that I would put a controller player sensitivity at. I think on the low end, you should be playing 42 up until 54, so a really good range for doing the zone wars, hitting good shots, but also having quick builds. Now I'm going to just give you guys a couple of base sensitivities to try. You can start from these sensitivities and tweak them depending on what you like and what kind of game mode you're playing and wanting to stick to. Me personally, 1.8, 1.8, 55, 55 was a really good starting sensitivity for me for zone wars and doing retakes at the same time. You can tweak it however you like, do 1.7 build sense and turn it down a little bit. At the end of the day, that's just all up to preference and feel for your controller. Next up is a really good sense for arena, piece control, and zone wars as well. It's 44, 44, 2.3, 2.2. It's a really good sense for piecing people up and hitting good 200 pumps. I think you guys should try this out along with PS4 gamepad input if you're having a hard time hitting shots. And now I'm just going to put a couple sensitivities on the screen that you guys can try as well and base your senses off. The reason I'm giving you guys these senses is so that you have something to base your sense off. When you're first starting out controller or you're trying to find a good sense, it's hard to know what you should try, and you might be trying a bunch of different things and nothing feels good for you. This could help you try some things that work for other people and then base your sensitivity off of them and eventually get your own one that feels good for yourself. And now we're finally going to talk about boost. Boost is a really weird setting, and I think you should only have it up to 2% if you do want to use it. Me personally, I only ever use 1% on it because I think 2% makes it feel a little bit stiff. Boost can make it easier to build, but it can make your aim a lot worse. I don't think you should use it if you're trying to have good aim. What boost actually does is it adds a little bit of acceleration at a certain point in your stick curve, and then it turns it down afterwards, similar to the S-curve dynamic curve on Call of Duty. In my opinion, it's not good. It makes you feel really sluggish, and I feel like it messes with your aim assist. I wouldn't really use it if I was you guys, but you can mess with it and see if you like it. For me, it's a no-go. Boost ramp time, I really don't know. I don't mess with this ever, and every time I have, it's made my controller feel really uncomfortable. And for instant boost when building, that defeats the purpose of boost, because when you use boost, you want to have acceleration, not instant acceleration of your sensitivity after you change to your builds. In terms of look dampening, this is another thing that's going to mess with your acceleration curve. I wouldn't do this, as it's going to smooth you out a lot and change at which the point that your acceleration is going to start when you're moving your stick, and it puts it on a timer. It's really weird and it's uncomfortable. For a look input curve, I only use linear. Expo is honestly not good. You can try to use it as much as you want, but at the end of the day, it's just going to make it uncomfortable for you to play, and you want to be as comfortable as possible while you're playing so you can build good muscle memory. Some closing tips that I can give you guys would be to 1, overclock your controller. It helps your sense feel a lot more responsive and helps your delay a lot. And 2 would be to stick to one sensitivity and one input layout and get used to that. If you can do that, you can constantly improve and build on your muscle memory, and you'll be able to get better a lot faster. That's all for now. I appreciate it a ton if you made it this far into the video. I'm going to be dropping a lot more content soon, so make sure you like and subscribe if I was able to help you out at all. Thanks for watching. Khosh out.
The 1 for 1 for 1. You're getting shit on.